quite interesting, I must say. So I was actually very passionate about law as a subject, since childhood. And usually, I was quite argumentative by nature, based, small questions or anything. Wherever we used to have any kind of arguments or discussions, even with my parents or friends, I was quite argumentative. I used to question a lot. I mean, there were lots of ifs and buts that used to come in. And that was kind of a, inbuilt character, I would say, that I had. And all my well-wishers, they were at one point of time saying, "Hey, I think your profession should be something like legal, where there are a lot of ifs and buts. There are no wrong or right answers." And moreover, it was more like I would say. I used to put myself in the character of certain roles that I used to watch, or whenever I used to come across people, and then see how I would have dealt in such situations. So that was a very, very different thought process that I used to have, and that is kind of thing which pushed me to get into a legal profession, where legal, I would say, education per se, and pursue law. So that is how it all started. That's how it was. Something very similar happened here also with me, Prabjot, where when I was pursuing law, I was not aware that, in order to take that as a profession, you need to really have a mentor, to really pursue law. So that was something that even I was not aware of. So that's the reason that when I say law, I did pursue law, but I could not really take that as a hardcore profession. Absolutely. It's a long story. I mean, in order to cut it short, I would just say that, after my graduation, I was at a juncture where I was to choose between business management and law. And I chose law to fulfill my dream of being a lawyer. So eventually I did my business management as well. So I wanted to practice law, but since I was going to be the first generation lawyer in my family, I did not have a great mentor in that field. And we were in Hyderabad at that point of time. With not very active social media at that time, it was difficult for me to access law firms in Mumbai or Delhi. That's where the bigger law firms are. So that was a big that took a backstage as far as the profession goes. And then since I basically come from a defense background, so my dad was in the army, and so we are closer to the corporate world than maybe a legal profession. So since and that was a time when I thought, do I get into corporate world or do I start my own business? So in fact, business came first and then the corporate world. So I wanted to get into business. So in order to get started with business, obviously you need to get exposed to the market. And that's when I thought, let me get into a corporate world, understand what the market is all about. So therefore, I joined. My very first company was a leading market research company. And once I got into the research field, I tried to understand the market, and then I went on. My journey in the corporate world started. And I would say that I did pretty well there. In about 11 years of time, I became the youngest regional manager handling the South India operations in a span of about 11 years, which means on an average, every 2 years I was getting promoted. So that was my very first organization, and then I went on to head another organization where I managed close to about 1,000 FTEs, full-time employees. And my third job, where recently I quit, I was the director for operations for whole of Asia operations, consisting of about 8 countries. So all that was quite pretty fast in my corporate life, and 27 years just passed by, in the corporate world, and it was, I would say, a very, very fast-track journey for me in the corporate side. Yeah, that's a very good question, Prabjot. I would say yes. I mean, at least during my time when I completed my law in 1998, one needed to have that mentor, as I earlier mentioned. Mentorship in the legal profession is a must. Otherwise, it's not that easy in this profession, or at least a senior who could train you. Now, law being a profession where the clients would come to an accomplished, lawyer, having a very good reputation of say winning the cases, etc. Because it's a matter of life and death. In a lot of cases, you have got civil cases where you are fighting for hard-earned money, properties, and versus a family law where or a criminal law or case law where lives are involved. So no one would like to try out a lawyer who has just completed law or who has got no major cases to boast about. So that's definitely a huge challenge. With almost no presence of social media then, at that time, the lawyer's profession was more physical in nature, and one's presence on the ground mattered a lot. So I still remember a successful lawyer in those days was like a person having a huge office, with lots of tons of books. You need to have a proper, a person out there who can entertain the clients when they are coming in, and then you get the appointment with the senior lawyer, and that's when you start entertaining the person. So that used to be the physical nature of law at one point of time during that time. So that person was called successful lawyer. But of late things have changed a lot. Now social media has taken up the front seat. So from a first time, again, coming back to the first timer to establish the legal profession, it was a big challenge. But I'm glad to say that things are changing now, with a lot of law firms sprouting and opportunities are thriving for the deserve. It's also fascinating to see that newer generation of lawyers are well informed, tech savvy, and deep rooted in their thoughts, which matters a lot to be a good lawyer. So so that's what I would like to say, that first generation lawyer, the key is having a solid mentor, which is going to be the key. Well, I think India has been developing at an exponential pace, with technology taking the front seat. So thanks to the central government, their initiatives on Make in India and other tech initiatives. So those legal content and editorial space is also not untouched with this technology, with this development. In my experience, COVID has really given that boost in this area. So law has always been a traditional profession, with printed material taking the top rank. When I say printed materials, the printed books. India still is a print-dominated market. So, but gone are the days where one used to do manual editing of legal content. This is now transformed in a big way into people, including authors doing online editing, content updates, etc. Everything is happening online. This is a huge change. So imagine like the bills and the legislations passed by the parliament getting signed by the president, and the same being available online in a matter of 24 hours. So this has been, this is a dream, I would say, in the legal profession. Because right now, if you look at the bare acts that we get in the market, they're obsolete when it comes to print. By the time there is a change, unless the content is available within 24 hours online, it doesn't work these days. So, and that all can happen only through technology. So this has taken out, obsolescence of content, which until now has been circulated in the form of print in the market. So the legal fraternity, up till pre-COVID, was transforming at a rather slower pace. Now, COVID has made this industry to rethink and adapt the technology, which has changed the industry dynamics in a big way. From legal research to content sourcing to content enhancement to online first. All these are technology-driven initiatives. And if you look at these days, if you have to enable all this, there have to be AI-based analytical solutions, which are now available in the market, and that has played a huge role. This has also opened opportunities for youngsters from being legal researchers to play a role in digitization. So, of course, the Western markets in this area are far too advanced compared to India. There is still a lot which needs to be done in India, and there is a huge potential for technology in this space. But unfortunately, Indian legal content is still quite unorganized. and unstructured, which poses a challenge to the tech companies to play in this area. But thanks to the current CJ as well as the recent CJs, the Chief Justices who have come in India, who are like very well versed with technology and have been pushing hard to make courts paperless and make life simpler for the citizens. So I'm glad to state here that the digital transformation has now caught up pace in the legal industry, and we are running against time. As people have seen the need and are, getting themselves completely transformed, being digitally transformed now. So the responsibilities of CEOs and COOs in any organization is similar, I would say. But what matters is the kind of business ecosystem that you are in. Like a startup CEO versus a CEO of a well-funded or an established organization where the processes are already time-tested and you already have a history of trials and errors. There's a huge difference between the responsibilities per se, but again, the challenges vary when you're managing a multi-country teams versus just single country or single location teams. So I'm stating this with my experience when I have worked in MNCs with multinational presence to promoter-driven companies. So handling, operations at the helm of these organizations gave me very different learnings, and the perspective was very, very different in each organization. So irrespective of the size, I think one of the biggest hurdles is managing people. People are like, I always keep quoting that if people are like, like 5 fingers of the hand, like they're very different, and each one has a different IQ level. They come from a different background. So, but at the same time, as a manager or as a person, as a CEO or CEO, you would like everybody to perform equally, but that's not that easy. So you need to always keep nurturing people at every single stage, and with people, different IQ levels, as I just mentioned, one needs to be organized and take care of your employees, which I feel is the key. Because if you look at the brand names, the big companies and all, I mean the key strength are the people. So it's the strong teams which make or break these companies. So organizations are, I strongly believe that, they're made of employees first, and then comes infrastructure, branding, and all other things. So I believe that everyone has the same 24 hours and one needs to accomplish his or her duties, personal or professional, at the same time. So respecting time and utilizing it to is the best key, I feel. And I use my calendar quite effectively, which ensures that I do not carry a lot of work in my mind. Everything is jotted in the calendar from my private to professional engagements, and I ensure that I'm basically free. My mind is usually free, and on the responsibilities, I don't think everyone is cut to do everything in life. So we all have our strengths and weaknesses. So ensure the job is done by the person who is best in that area, rather than trying to do something which you don't have that kind of expertise, but still you're pushing somebody to do. I mean, that's not going to work. Effective delegation and setting a strong process is my mantra. That is what I have been preaching for the last 27 years. And of course, last but not the least is the trust and delegate and do what you are supposed to do. If everyone starts doing their own job that they are meant to do, you're bound to be successful. Example, if a sales guy gets into, say, operations, then who's going to do his job, or who's going to sell the product? So I go with the philosophy that if I do someone else's job, then who's going to do my job? While helping, supporting, collaboration are different, different, which goes without saying in an organization, whether it's a small startup or a large organization. So I feel that you need to give a lot of thrust on the people front and ensure that your teams are doing well, and that's when you can grow that much. As I said, the business ecosystems vary from industry to industry, and again from an MNC to a startup. So when you say a business ecosystem, there are different challenges that at different levels you come across, and different companies that you have. like you work in an Indian company, the culture is very different as compared to maybe a US or maybe any other multinational company. So I would say that we can't really generalize all the business ecosystems into one single area and say that, hey, this is the rule and this is how you need to follow. It doesn't work like that. You need to be flexible. You need to change yourself from time to time and from situation to situation. So that's what I just mentioned, that the situation that I was in and my exposure as far as the MNCs are concerned, where my teams were sitting abroad, out of country, and then managing those teams in a particular company was very, very different as compared to my other system, where only my corporate office was in the US, and that was a promoter-driven company. Imagine the kind of work and the pressure that you have when you're supposed to deliver to a US-based company, and there are like margins which are like at the helm, and everybody looks at the end of the month, and you need to prove that you have to give that XYZ bottom line to the company. So those are the kind of ecosystems which completely varies from maybe what you had seen through in an MNC versus maybe a promoter-driven company. So there's a huge difference in different kinds of business operations. Well, that's like a difficult question, but because though you keep reading a lot of books then, but I would say from a professional standpoint, I would say Ruskin Bond was one of my favorites, and those were he's one of the guys. Okay, so when it comes to a fictional character, I would be more like a kid. I would go with okay, I'll go back to my good olden days. I used to read a lot of Phantom books. So I would say Phantom was one of the guys who we used to really love as kids. So yeah, I would go with that. Well, now that I've got into a new venture, I just started my own venture. So there is a lot that I have to do on my own. So earlier, when you're working in an MNC, that you've got a lot of people, you've got a lot of teams, etc. So what motivates me every day is like I need to do something different in the initiative that I started, and that's not going to be easy because you don't have that kind of a support system. So I have set myself a deadline to achieve an X kind of number of clients, and that's what keeps me pushing hard every day. That irrespective of Saturdays and Sundays, I work to drive to meet that milestone. So that's what drives me as on date. I wanted to be a pilot, I would say. Because flying is something, I basically am a very adventurous person. So flying a plane was something which was always a dream for me. And that's one reason that I also did my NCC in my graduation from Air Wing, and which is like, and I kind of, been fortunate in being part of those flying clubs, and I've been I've even flown engineless glider. So that's like a very that would have been my second option, I would say. Yes, of course. There's a for the younger generation, first of all, I would like to say that there's a huge change between what we used to study at that time or the kind of the younger generation that we have today. They're like quite tech savvy, which is great. And my advice to the youngsters and the legal profession would be to, firstly be passionate about what you're doing, and stay updated with the latest news, latest laws, cases, be informative about what's happening, not just around you, but also within the country and if possible globally as well. And it's very important that you have to be really, really tech savvy and transform your thought process to be more analytical and think differently. as the industry we are all in is quite vibrant, and there is no right or wrong answer for any situation. Be prepared to face situations which you probably have not envisaged about, and voice out your thoughts. Do not fear of people or what they might think about you, and just be confident about whatever you're saying. As I said, the legal industry, there's no right or wrong answer. It's a very subjective industry. And lastly, believe in yourself and do what you think is right. At the end of the day, when you look back, you need to answer yourself as to what you have done in the past, and you should not be regretful in the future.